All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Monday morning coffee chat here on Adventures with Sarah. We are continuing with our new project of where in the world. And so the answer to the question, where in the world this week is, Reed, tell me where in the world this week.
Well, I'm coming to you from Jodhpur virtually. This is a Mehrgarh Fort in the background, which is in Jodhpur. And I've chosen that because our guest this morning, Chetan, who you see at the bottom of the screen there, that is where he lives. So he literally is broadcasting from Jodhpur. I'm just virtually there. So
Wait,
Jodhpur,
what? He lives in that fort? Are you saying he lives in that fort? I had no idea, Chetan, you were that special.
He is. He's the new Maharaja of Mehrgarh, and he will give you a private tour.
Now, for all of you watching out there right now, you've seen Chetan before. He came on as a guest at another time, and we absolutely loved having him because he's just like sunshine. You are just like a ball of sunshine. So he works with us. Reed and I work together with Imprint Tours, and actually we're going to do a tour together. When is that, Reed? I'm doing it in what, November of next year?
I've got November of this fall scheduled with Chetan, both the classic Northern India tour, places that everybody knows, and then following behind that is a brand new Southern India tour. But we're going to talk about that on another week at Where in the World. So, but coming up early November, November 6th, this fall. And then yours, Sarah, I want to say is scheduled about the third week of October for 2022. So we've got Chetan lined up for the next two late autumns of 2021 and 2022.
Oh, so I am so excited. This will be my first foray into India. So I'm hoping, well, I know you and I are gonna have a great time, Chetan. So I'm looking for a group to join me. So anyway, so welcome, Chetan, and thank you for joining us. I know for you, it is very, very late. So we are really appreciative that you stayed up so late. So tell us what's going on in India these days.
Fun. Thank you for having me here again. And hello, Reed. Hello, everyone who is up here from Jodhpur, the blue city, the wonder city of Western Rajasthan. Everything's going on well. Apart from that, the shackles of COVID are slowly getting opened up. Huge vaccination drive is in place. So we already have vaccinated almost about 10 million people. Domestic tourism, which is a great positive sign, is now opened up. Monuments are slowly opening up for people to revisit. The normal life has kind of resumed with certain restrictions in certain parts. So that's from COVID perspective. From every other perspective, the sun is bright, as you could see right behind Reed, the photograph. Exactly what we are seeing here these days, that we are actually moving from winters into summer now. The sun are really, really nice. Mornings are great. Noon is a little warm, and the evenings are right perfect for having a nice garden party. So things are again seeming to be rock and roll in Jodhpur and overall in India.
That is so great. And one of the things you and I were chatting about before we started was about how they're really doing a good job vaccinating people. And actually, India has all of a sudden, I just heard in the news, they've had a huge dip in the amount of cases that they've had. So you said that there are people out, like domestic tourists already, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And year end and just towards the end of January, we had some of the more popular destinations literally thronging with domestic travelers as if nothing had happened. So that's a good sign. And the best part, which after their return, we have not really seen any considerable increase in those cases. So which has literally led the way and inspiration for so many others to come. And the great news, let me share with you, earlier, all the cultural fairs and festivals were literally prohibited or prescribed to be organized, but February and coinciding towards the end of Feb, we are having the Great Desert Festival, which is being organized by Ministry of Tourism, Art and Culture in Jaisalmer, which is actually west of Rajasthan. Desert Fair happens to be organized on the sand dunes. It's a 3-day extravaganza with a lot of cultural activities and a lot of fun, frolic, pomp and show. So we are really, really expecting a lot of people up there. government has taken all the necessary measures to have protections in place, safety in place. Coinciding with this is already a very, very highly religious Kumbh fair, which is organized every 12 years. It's a very, very high sacred fair organized. It's also being underway. So things are looking really, really right. Fingers crossed. People are now pretty much respecting the policy and the guidelines followed for COVID. But then not all five fingers are equal. So we do have certain stray cases who literally, the cat's out of the bag kind of thing. So this
Sure.
is what is happening. The overall, it's kind of a pretty positive, and the best part is that I'm sharing a few states are slowly opening up to organize the routine cultural fairs and festivals. Khajuraho is another place where we have almost 1,000 years old great temples, and they are organizing Khajuraho Cultural Dance Festival for 5 days.
Wow.
So it's
Huh.
bright.
Yeah, wow, it just makes
They're
it
looking
feel
really
like
bright.
things are getting back to normal for India. So that's wonderful. So, huh.
If, Sarah, if I can jump in here for a second, I failed to say, and just for our viewers, geographically, we don't have a map to put up, but Jodhpur is on the eastern edge of the Great Thar Desert, and
Yep.
Jaisalmer that Chetan mentioned is on the western edge. So he mentioned that the festival would be out in the dunes. That's Jaisalmer is not part of our tour, but boy, if anybody ever wanted to travel independently, that is a special place to visit. Just a spectacular destination.
So now that you said that, Reed, I'm actually just pulling up a map of the world, and I am going to zip back here to Zoom and share my screen, just because I think it is nice to let people see what we're talking about. So this is where Chetan is coming to us from. So in India, so it's kind of north western India and Rajasthan, right?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. So, so again, you were saying that there's the desert fair. So it's out in this kind of desert. Wow, it's a lot of desert out there.
That's Jodhpur, and you need to
Well,
walk
yeah,
further
not
Jaisalmer.
yeah,
Side.
not all of what looks like desert is desert. If you see Jodhpur now on the screen, that's about the eastern edge. And then you see Jaisalmer up at about, I would say, 10 o'clock, if you thought of it as a clock face. That's the sort of, and the desert goes all the way out to the border of Pakistan, but Jaisalmer is sort of the last outpost there to the west in the desert.
Oh yeah, right there. I see it. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Mhm.
All right, great. Okay. So yeah, I'm embarrassed to say that I don't actually know exactly where in India all of these big cities are, and I'm betting our viewers don't either. So when we speak about the India, what we're going to talk about this week about India, we're not going to be touching on this region from here. So from where north are we going to be talking this week when we talk about India?
Well, let's see, between where you've got your red marker and Ahmedabad in the south, about halfway between there, if you can expand the map a little bit, you'll see Udaipur will eventually, there's Udaipur right there. That's as far south as we're going.
Okay.
West to Jodhpur, south to Udaipur, and east to Varanasi.
Oh, wow. That's a long way east.
Yeah, we fly out to Varanasi because it doesn't fit geographically with the rest, but we fly out and back in order to include Varanasi.
Cool. Wow. So that is a pretty big itinerary. That's going to be really exciting. All right, so I'm going to zip out of this. And actually, I'm going to stay in screen share for a second, just because I think it's also fun. Let's switch over because Reed sent me some really beautiful photos, and I would just love it if you could tell us a little bit about them, Chetan. Here we go.
This is a test, Chetan.
Oh, let's see if I can actually there we go. All right. So some pretty photos that Reed has sent to me.
You've already mentioned this one.
So what is this?
Yeah, that's a photo taken from the temple frieze in Khajuraho, which is in central India. It's a granite temple. This one is in Amritsar in Punjab, the Golden Temple, one of the most sacred place for pilgrimage for Sikh community. You see the people with turban and beard. That is stunning example of the water well system. We call them step well. That is near Abhaneri. It's a small town hidden off the main road. These types of step wells were actually constructed by the royal ladies, and this is another perspective photograph of the same. So you notice the steps which are crisscrossing zigzag. If there would have been a good sunlight, alternative black and white shadow would actually pose them into a three-dimensional mode as if there are pearls dropping down from the top. The
Wow.
natural water reservoir system from 15th and 17th century, and that's a very, very common Indian market, local space. Now, this particular scene is from a small town called Orcha, which is also in central India,
You're blowing me
near
away.
Jhansi.
And for the audience, he had no prep for these photographs. He's just going from his deep, deep well of knowledge.
And this one, that is a typical photograph. You see, India is united. In United, we stand and we reflect a lot of color, fun, frolic, and people are so very, very welcoming the moment you pose your camera towards them. Irrespective of the fact that you notice that gentleman right on the back, he's trying to get on to the tractor trolley, somehow wanting to stuff. And this is what the local transport that we notice specifically during the rural fairs as the crowds start pulling in towards the main sites.
Yeah, that was the Panchmi festival in Orcha that I stumbled upon with a group back in 2010. That was before I knew
Okay.
Chetan. And I just wanted, when I chose these photographs, it was, I think people know about the Taj Mahal. They maybe even know about this fort behind me today, a Mehrgarh fort, or they've heard of Rajasthan. They know about Jaipur, but there's so much more, like stumbling onto one of these festivals and seeing the color. All of these women have come into this little town from the countryside, all wearing their most spectacular, beautiful saris, and probably all of them own but one. And they've all arrived even in the back of farm wagons, as you saw in the previous photograph, for this little festival. That's, you know, we can't guarantee those sorts of experiences on the tours, but of course that's the serendipity of travel.
Great photo.
And was that we're back at the beginning then, huh? No, we don't.
It was same destination, different photo.
This photo one. This one is Ranakpur Jain temples. That's about 2 hours from either Jodhpur or from Udaipur, stuck into the center of Aravalli Hills, a main place of worship for the Jain religion, Jainism. The beauty of this temple is spectacular, and that is my hometown, Jodhpur,
Cool.
Mehrangarh Fort.
Well, we just thought that'd be a fun way to get us kicked off here, just to give you a little taste about what we're going to be seeing in India this week. And I have to admit to you, Chetan, I've been working with REID for a few years now, and every year he's like, "Are you ready to do India?" And I'm like, "No,"
No,
because
you ought to.
it's. I feel like India is a destination that just feels a little bit more intimidating, which is a really good reason to take a tour of it. That's why I think this is a really great idea that we're offering a few different tours. Is it a challenging destination for foreigners to travel in?
I'll go back to the word you used, intimidating. Let me dissect it. To make it more popular, it's actually intimately dating rather than intimidating.
Intimately.
People are so welcoming. People are so welcoming. Now, a lot of people, because the tourists have been percolating down towards the hidden corners, as we just showed you. People showed the photographs of this very small hidden town like Orcha. So everyone is curious about each other, and that way, as also is our cultural heritage, guests are the gods. So wherever you go, three things you would get without asking. Smile. It's absolutely inevitable, right? A cup of chai. Absolutely. That's an indispensable thing. And third, can we have a photo with you? So photo op. And these are little elements which actually has made me to redefine the word intimidating into intimately dating country. And these pros and cons, see, just like any other country, any other city, there would be some good man and some bad experiences that may happen. In India, it's a huge gamut of elements incorporated in one spectrum. So you have a lot of people, some of them are curious, anxious, little nervous, excited, a bit scared as well. If you look at those small children who would want to run towards you, but the moment you turn towards them, they are kind of like wary. And the youngsters who would be equally buzzing, wanting to be with you. So, because in India we all have always believed in a personal touch to our guests, which probably is not followed erstwhile in anywhere else out of the country, apart from some other Asian uh, cultures. So probably that could be one of the elements of experience that could be defined in the word intimidating or a little bit overwhelming. Because in India, we do not really follow the principle of private space. We are literally juxtaposed onto each others, to say it that way, but in a good way. We don't really pound or pose each other on one another, but that's how they are.
That's great.
So,
And
yeah.
so Reed, tell me what, when people come with you to India, I mean, what are their reactions? Because I know that, you know, it's going to be kind of overwhelming, the sights, the sounds, the smells, the crowds, you know, what are the things that really strike people at first?
Gosh, people have different responses to India, and Chetan has done a great job of talking about the upside of India, but there is the difficulty of traveling there. There is a hassle factor, and it requires good compartmentalization, I think, is the way I would put that. The best, most intrepid, adventurous travelers, you know, the kind that you and I love on our tours, they are the ones that enjoy India the most, because they've kind of learned how to ignore the open sewers and the garbage in the streets and the touts trying to sell them things, and compartmentalize that and focus on the positive. Those people are just blown away, because even our veteran travelers that have been all over the globe with Imprint Tours, India gives new meaning to the word rich and varied. It's just it's the sensory, I'm going to say, overload is a daily, hourly occurrence. You know, it's not just the sights, it's not just the architecture, it's the people, it's the colors, it's the smells, it's the food, it's everything. So a little bit overwhelmed, I think, and then this just sort of trying to process. I don't know if I've specifically answered your question very well, but it's a place that takes you away, and the response is either you absolutely love it and can't get enough of it and want to go right back again as soon as you leave, or you kind of get overwhelmed by the negative and you never want to go again. What I'm saying is, and I'm happy to say that at least with my travelers in the past, it's overwhelmingly been the positive response. But what I'm really trying to say is there's no middle ground. Nobody goes to India and says, yeah, it was okay. No one goes to India
No one would.
without having a powerful response.
Huh.
I would
Well,
rather. I would rather
Is that
add
fair,
that.
Chetan? Is that fair to say that?
Absolutely, you've been right, spot on in saying that. And I would just add two more words to. It could be a bit overwhelming, often intoxicating, and never unforgettable. So that's
Yes.
how people take it. And I have done a tour with you, Reed, and I have observed all of them. Probably you'll remember that when we were about to reach the Pushkar city on the day that the Pushkar Fair was already on, and there was a huge traffic jam,
Yes.
and we had to literally struggle with our bus through the dunes and braving all that stalemate traffic at the end. And it actually took never ending hours for us. And if you could remember, I literally walked in front of the bus, cleaning the passage, and the moment we were right at our hotel, there swimming right in front. Yes, absolutely. And when we were at the hotel, everyone was going gaga about that experience. Probably that was one of the highlights for them.
Yes.
So when we were in the bus and literally the vehicles and people were passing, literally scratching each other, overwhelming. But the moment you were in your hotel with with a glass of wine and beer, with the lush, delectable delicacies in front of you, food, And everyone was like remembering and recalling that experience to be already a highlight of the tour. So that's how things can literally turn around.
But you've
And
really
that,
hit on a key point here. It was all about how people respond to that, because we got delayed. I don't remember, but I'm going to say 2 hours or 3 hours. You know, what should have taken us 20 minutes or 30 minutes to drive took
yeah,
2 or 3 hours. But the panoply of life that was also flowing by us, you know, because it wasn't just vehicles in our way. It was people and camel carts and donkeys and vendors coming to sell.
yeah,
And Chetan is out there in front, almost literally creating a space for our bus. And I recall you jumping on I don't know, you commandeered somebody's motorcycle, and you were on the back there, and the people who had that great intrepid attitude about travel loved it, didn't mind being delayed, you know. But
yes.
some people might have been put off by the fact that it took us 3 hours to get there.
I would
So
also
I guess,
put one more thing. I would also put one more thing, that probably that was also because of you already educating and preparing them for any such type of unforeseen circumstance. And that makes my job so much easier.
Well,
So that
what,
actually helps. The basic thing is educating people about what can go a bit haywire or digress from what we are planning. And if they are mentally prepared about that, the overwhelming thing can actually becoming a highlight, a remarkable experience for them.
that's true everywhere, though. I have to say that if there is one skill a tour guide has to have, it's creating expectations, like preparing people for what's going to happen. And I always prepare people for the worst and let them be delightfully surprised if things go in a better way. So, you know, I think it's good. And that's why I like this is a great conversation, because it's good to be really honest about destinations. You know, you don't want to tell people, oh, you're going to see the Taj Mahal and it's all going to be perfect and nothing is ever going to go wrong. That's not true of anywhere. Things go wrong everywhere. And so it's really great to have a very honest conversation and people have the right expectations. So when they go, they know it's going to be a challenging destination, but it's a very rewarding destination. And I think that's true generally, that the more challenging destinations often are the most rewarding. Is that kind of what you find?
Oh, absolutely. Especially on our tours, when people, a lot of times people on our groups are the first timers to India, though otherwise they would have been seasonal travelers. But yes, probably already overwhelmed, as we keep on using this word again and again, by the very name India. Right? Just imagine, for someone who has never ever been exposed to an unending stare, that could be so intimidating, as you said.
Wait, what
But
is
if I
that?
would have,
What is that?
I mean, on anywhere, when you are on the streets and all these curious faces would look at you and would want to stare at you as, how come in the world you are here rather than being at the Taj Mahal? If you're talking about that small rural fair, which is organized by the side of a small river, and people don't really know because it's not coming on the map. But we are there as a group, and everyone is like, how come these people are here? Who are they? Isn't
See,
it?
that's the beauty of the work that we're doing. Is I love that we take people to places that they would never think to go, and would have no access to on their own. It would be really difficult. So I love that feeling of walking through a small village where they have never seen a foreigner ever set foot. I mean, I think that's the meat of travel. It's not tourism, it's travel, you know. So,
And that's the real,
yeah,
that's also the real essence of your experience of going out away from your home into a new place.
it is.
And
And
that's what probably would, you write in your scrapbook in the golden outlining your experiences. And
exactly.
that's where our role come, that we actually become a bridge of communication and facilitating that indelible experience for both. It's not only for the visitors, it's also for the host communities, it's also for me. Just imagine, I would go, and I've done that, you won't believe it. In India, traditionally, when we go to any like a small village or a family's place, which we do take people to, and they offer us a cup of chai, which is a very, very common drink, inevitable. We pour the drink into the saucer, plate as you call it, and then you sip. And I always tell my people, the best way of having your chai is not by sipping it, by slurpily sipping it. Imagine 15 people in my group sitting at the same time doing that. That creates the rhythm of the sound. Never ever done in their life. But here I'm making them do it and everyone joins.
And
Can you believe people forget that?
to this day, Chetan, I'm not convinced that that isn't something that you've just made up by yourself just to see if you can get people to do it.
We'll do that next time on our tour for sure.
Okay.
So yesterday was the International Tourist Guide Day. It's the day that we celebrate our profession. And because of that, I'm just curious, I don't know, how did you get into this line of work? I mean, we all have such different paths. This is the thing I think is fascinating about all of our colleagues around the world, is that every person who's arrived at tour guiding as a profession has come in some kind of really strange way. I know REID came through more of an academic path. I came from architecture. Where did you come from? How did you come to this profession?
Before this, I have a degree in master's with chemistry and biochemistry. And then I did my MBA in travel and tourism. But I have a working experience with the United Nations. They have a subsidiary called UNIDO, United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO. So I was working with UNIDO and in conjunction with the local governments to do projects for the craft people, the families, traditional craft and artisan families who would be in a particular vocation for more than 800 years, 500 years, 5, 7, 8, 10 generations. So that was the time that it exposed me to the real rich heritage of India. And I really wanted to be in an area where I could showcase and portray how beautiful the country is endowed with all these different elements of our cultural tradition. So in what better way than becoming a tour leader? So that's how I get crashed into the job. And here I am, leading astray, misguiding everyone on the roller coaster ride of fun and frolic since 2005.
I love that. That should be the tagline for all tour guides. But I love that that's your intention. And I mean, I find the more I go outside of Europe and go into, countries that are not as well traveled as Europe and not as first world, I really find that that's a passion that I have too, is how do we connect our travelers with artisans? I mean, when I'm in Cambodia, that's something I really want to do in the future, is to connect people with the women there that really could use that support, but also they do really beautiful work. So that's so cool that that's the angle that you come from. So you've been doing it from 2005 and and you do a lot of different itineraries, I hear, right?
Oh yeah, I do that. I've led tours across India, Nepal, and Bhutan. I do special theme tours like food groups. I do photography tours. I do wildlife, cultural, historical. I also do some specifically tailor-made tours of cultural fairs and festivals, textiles. I mean, the entire gamut of traveling essence I've covered in all these years. The best part basically for me is the people who come on the tour, and they have shared with me time and again that they always had a dream to come to India. And there's another thing that I believe, how you can be a successful tour guide. That's my kind of a key to success I'm sharing. See, people would come for the first time to any place, and I might have been to that place umpteen number of times. So what I feel and what I think is that maybe I have gone to a place X 50 times, 100 times, but for you, it is your first time. So I try to put myself in your shoes, the expectations, the anticipations, the anxieties, what is going to be there, the unfurling of all those surprises. And then I try to lead them and show them the way, what I would be feeling if I would be there for the first time. So my preparation would actually focus on your first time. So either I can make that experience or I can break that experience and shatter it. So I would go with the former one. And that's how we all probably, you all do that. I've seen Reed doing that, like on our coffee chats while on the tours. Inspiring.
Well, I think that
You've been really, really magnanimous in, praising everything about me. So thank you so much.
well, the pleasure I think of tour guiding, no matter where you are in the world, is, a lot of people say, oh, you've seen, the Leaning Tower of Pisa 500 times, or you've seen the Taj Mahal 500 times. And, that must be boring for you. But for me, it never is boring, because what's exciting is watching the enthusiasm I love watching the magic in people's eyes when they first see something they've longed to see their whole lives. That's what makes our job so special, I think.
Absolutely. And I've had people with their wet eyes when they have seen a tiger right in front of our Jeep in a tiger safari, or when they were just in front of Taj Mahal with the sun coming up or setting down. And they had tears and on my shoulders. And those are the moments that, they become stamps of your experience.
Wow.
And they end up consolidating even better relationships among all the travelers. They become even more cohesive and affectionate families, because everyone is on the same boat of that element of experience at that point of time. And if we
Wow.
can facilitate that seamlessly, blending and empathizing with those emotions, jackpot is being hit.
Wow. Well, hey, Reid, you and I have planned the tour that I'm doing in October of 2022 to go to the Pushkar Fair, which is something that I know that you are really excited and interested in. So could you tell us a little bit? I've got some photos that Reid sent me this morning that I'm going to share with you guys so you can have a look. So let me flip over to that. So Reid, could you just tell us a little bit about the Pushkar Fair?
Yeah, basically this is sort of the mother of all desert fairs. It started with, hundreds of years ago, all the nomads, the wandering people of the Tar Desert gathering together once a year to buy and sell camels primarily, but also cattle. And of course, around, whenever people gather for, once in a year, there's always partying that goes on, and that eventually evolves into this great fair, the Mila, the fair that surrounds the gathering of the nomads. That still takes place when you arrive in Pushkar. You see out on the hills around the town, hundreds and hundreds of thousands, if you're there at the right time, of camels where they've come to buy and sell their camels. But then with it, you now have this carnival experience. The image on the screen right now was the finale back in, I think that was the time, and I think this was the time before I was with you, Chetan. On the final day, they have all kinds of things going on, and they had 300 women in their red saris doing a synchronized sort of Bollywood dance out there, and that's a big like stadium where we are. But there's all of the people come from all over Rajasthan. They're wearing their traditional costumes. There's a mustache contest. There's these performing troops. Then they get 20 volunteers of Western tourists out of the stands to compete in a tug of war, with a local Rajasthani troop. Those two guys on the screen now, they were part of the beard and mustache competition. I don't know if I've got a picture in the front with the long mustache, but it's kind of, all the things that I was struggling to say about India and how colorful it is, how rich it is. This is like a concentration. There you go. There's the mustache guy. This is a concentration of all those other things Indian. So I always schedule our tours so that we can spend a couple days at Pushkar during the fair. I'm sure that Chetan can add all kinds of commentary here about the Pushkar Fair, but that's my experience. Fantastic.
I am very much looking forward to that. So go ahead. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about fairs, because you were saying that that's one of the things you specialize in, as well as taking people out to see some of these local fairs. Are they fairly common in different towns in India?
It's basically, a lot of towns are endowed with specific sites and locations where all these fairs are organized. Pushkar, for one, happens to be one of the biggest pilgrimage for Hindus, because it also houses the only Lord Brahma temple as the Hindu pantheon of Trinity of gods. We say Brahma, Lord Brahma is the creator god, right? So that's the only place where we have Brahma temple. And taking a holy dip in the holy lake by the temple is said to purge you of all your sins, and you could be sure of getting a passport, as we call it, for salvation. So that is one aspect which literally pulls hundreds of thousands of people over a period of 15 days to Pushkar. And you won't believe, during the duration of Pushkar Fair, the town is having 10 times people, the number of population, the population which lives there. It's almost 10 times there. So that is one aspect. Second aspect, as Reed so elaborately shared, is the colors from all the participants, not only for the spectacular events, but also for all of those villagers and the rural communities who converge there in order to sell their freshly made produce. Because we organize the Pushkar Fair is held around the month of November, and according to the Hindu calendar, it is a full moon night. So around that part, that is also pretty auspicious for having marriages solemnized. So there are so many hundreds of newly married couples in their entire Gaiti coming to that place. So they serve a multi-fold purpose: pilgrimage, seeking blessings, and also doing some local shopping which they were always wanting to. And at the same time, also having some fun time with the rural folk theaters being organized up there. So each place, for example, not many people would know, let me share here, there's a place called Sonpur, which is in Bihar, north of India, on land. In this fair, Sonpur Fair, which is also organized by a river, there is the largest congregation of elephants at a single place.
Oh,
Can you imagine 1,000 elephants with their calves staggering around there?
geez. That sounds very
And
exotic.
exactly. And it's not only elephants, there are an entire gamut of all those domestic and farm animals which are there for trading. And if you go to any of those places, they still resort to having their own negotiations because they are buying and selling animals in a very, very traditional auctioning way. So if we go there and we notice what they are doing, people would be literally mesmerized by their processes. So that's only one part. Then the other part is you are exposed to all the basic available local rural food up there, which is
Wow.
yet another major attraction. And food, see, when we live in big cities and we are driving air conditioned car, we go to a really nice, sophisticated buildings as our offices, we probably would not really go to that nondescript kind of a small place by the side of the road where hundreds of people are moving around, tractors are going, camels are running around with all the dust which is being spraying while they are cooking the food.
So this leads
Hygiene
me
reasons.
to an important
Hygiene
question,
reasons.
Chetan. I have a bunch of questions from the viewers who are watching our chat this morning. And this is a key question I think everybody's wondering. What about the food? Because that is the notorious sort of image in our heads for travelers in India, is getting sick from the food. So how is your experience with people, with Americans in particular, traveling over there? How do they handle eating the food? Is it okay for them to eat that kind of food?
Absolutely. And they have relished. See, bottom line, we would go to the places which are very, very local. Everyone knows McDonald's and KFC, but I would want to take you to places who are, for example, making a potato stuffed flatbreads, aloo parantha as we call it, right by the side of the road, which you can toss it with some type of mint and chili chutney or ketchup, right? To get
So,
the
but
essence
people don't
of,
get sick from that though. I mean, that's the question. Nobody, I mean, I've heard a lot of people get some sort of stomach upset or something like that. So that stuff is okay to eat then.
that's already been looked after, because not randomly we would be going to a place where we believe could pose any threat to our people or to myself, right? So hygiene, everyone's health is paramount on any of the trips that we do. And we do believe that food is one of the major attractions for people to travel to any place. And what better place than India to try the entire gamut of vegetarian, vegan, uh, sweets, non-vegetarian, as we call it, the meat products, everything is available here. And these days, for a change, lot many people are coming out of the traditional restaurants and trying the street foods and snacks. So it's kind of a two-way system. When the person who is selling at the roadside in a small stall notices that he's getting good business, he himself preempts the hygiene factor, and that makes our job easier. So yes, let me put it here. anyone and everyone from everywhere with whatever type of dietary requirement you have, you can freely come to India, try whatever you feel like, right? But yes, there are some basic points that we need to notice before we go to any random place. Cleanliness around that area and how much crowd is there in a particular place. That is a simple indicator. There are so many small shops around which sell all these types of food, and some of the stalls would be overcrowded with people, and that is an indicator that this place is going to have a hygienic meal option.
So then
And we
the
have done
water,
it. Like I've done it with people from the US, from the UK, Australia, everywhere, and we have done it even with the REIDs group. We
the follow
stopped
the follow-up question to that though that I have is the water. Is the water you would have to drink bottled water, I imagine, right?
most of the places. See, there's another thing. Now, 10 years back, things were different. Now the things are still much different and in a better way. How? Say, if we compare 10 years back, yes, we would from ourselves say, even if it is hazardous to environment, please only resort to having the water bottle, right? But now we go to certain places, and these days, pretty often, those places where we have RO, reverse osmosis, semi-permeable membrane filtration systems installed, so people can replenish the water. So
Ah,
food and water, whenever we are starting a group, these are the two major discussions that we do. And then come our granny's recipes, more than 500 years old things. If someone feels little not normal and don't feels like having a feed or food, next time we'll give them a granny's recipe and he would want to gluttonize the next meal.
Granny's recipe. Okay. So I've got a couple of other little questions here that people are wondering about. And this one's for you, Reed. When you stay in the small towns like Pushkar, what kind of accommodations do we usually have at those places?
Starting from backpackers where dormitories to you can get 5-star posh Swiss cottage tents, 4-star hotels. So see, all these places over a period of time, now because they are very well known, popular, governments are extending so much of subsidies and incentives to all these hospitality stakeholders. They are also gearing up to providing, and they are committed to providing you the best services and amenities. Right. So places like Pushkar, for example, they have the entire gamut of different types of accommodation. Very
So
clean, very safe.
yeah. So Reed,
Yeah.
how would you
Okay.
say that? How would you say that the accommodations in India stack up to other places we've traveled, Morocco, Thailand, wherever?
Actually, I'm really glad this came up. Whoever asked that question, thank you. Because the first time I did a tour in India in 2010, I was still personally in a real budget mode and trying to bring in a tour as inexpensively as possible. And we had some missteps on accommodation. The thing about India is the American dollar goes so far there that I can say without hesitation that the accommodations on the India tour are by far the nicest of any tour that we do, because we go to, 4 stars is not our style, but in India, it's just a different animal. And so what we focus on are heritage properties. These are all old palaces or something that have been converted into hotels. They have a definition within their tourism industry there of heritage properties. So virtually everywhere we stay is a heritage hotel. So 4-star kind of average. So it's I think it's one of the great selling points of the tour. Like I said, and I don't want to, it pains me a little bit to sort of succumb to luxury, because that's not my idea of real travel. And I don't like anything that separates us from the culture. But because of that factor that we talked about early, the hassle factor, the difficulties of India, this is one place that a little bit of cushion, a little bit of barrier between you and the excesses of that is a good thing. And what we do on the tour then is find other places where we can connect with real Indians without filters. But when it comes to retreating to your hotel, it's time to have a little bit of a filter in place. So sorry, that was a long answer to very nice accommodations every step of the way on the India tour.
Well, and I will say that's always between Reed and I a push and pull, because Reed is very much like, let's stay in a hostel. And I'm like, let's stay in a palace. And that's why we have such a great partnership, is that we kind of moderate each other's instincts. I'm like, ooh, princess. And he's like, backpacker. So yeah, Indiana Jones versus sort of like Queen of Sheba style traveling. And we find a nice middle ground. And that's why it works so well. So just a couple other questions I want to get to here. This is a really good one. Somebody asked, is it intrusive to communities that aren't accustomed to tourists when we bring a group of Americans into them? Do they find that disturbing? Does it bother them? Are they happy to see us? Like, how does that work when you take people into a town that's not used to seeing tourists?
In general, we have always been welcome. Like, that's kind of thing in our blood. It's kind of curiosity that gets generated as to who are they and why they are here. That's one big question. Why they are here? Why? But yes, there could be places, there could be times when people may not like it. Thankfully, we have not really come across any of those places. And to be honest with you and to share with you, on our tours, I have taken people to randomly chosen small places and communities and their families. And I have found people to be open-heartedly welcoming everyone into their house, showing around, offering some refreshments, because see, it's kind of a two-way system. We tend to know something about those families, they tend to learn something about us, and it becomes kind of a talk of town for that particular family or that particular small place that we visited them. And this probably would keep on going on and on and on for weeks altogether. Coming to the intrusion element, yes, we respect, we are pretty responsible in finalizing and locating certain places that we would want to go to. And in some cases, we actually do kind of a little talk before we would be choosing those places to go with a local, right? And once we get a green signal, then we go there. And sometimes, for example, imagine walking on a small street in any of the village or any of the cities for that matter, not only villages, anywhere. I might just stop at an entrance and show them some mascot which is being hanged for good luck. Just imagine someone from the house comes out and kind of what he's doing. I will explain why I have stopped and what I'm trying to explain. The moment I do this, that person, why don't you bring them in? And that solves the problem. So, a very prominent and very pertinent question, but we are very aware of this very fine line of difference and fine balance, as we call it, that a moment I feel that we would not be welcomed, I would be the first one to close the gate.
Yeah, well, and I
That
would
would never
say
get,
that what you're describing in India is exactly what I've found actually everywhere that I've ever guided. I mean, I remember in Morocco last year, it was just crazy because we wanted to do a tea, like teach people about how to make the Moroccan mint tea. And so we found a local who was willing to welcome us into our home. And what was crazy about it is that we were like celebrities. Like all the girls, the teenage girls wanted to come and they wanted to hang out with me. I was kind of on the younger end. And so they wanted to talk to me and practice their English. And, Cambodia, same thing. I've gone into villages there where they never have seen a Westerner like walk into their village. And they're just really happy to see somebody who's kind of exotic. I mean, we don't think of ourselves as exotic, but yeah, we're exotic when we're in a small village in India. And that could be the most exciting thing that's going to happen in that village for a month, So yeah, I'm glad you said that, because that's the feeling that I've gotten pretty much everywhere I've taken people. So,
and there's another thing, we don't just intrude into, because I would be with them, I would always first ask them, can we have a word? Your sari, she's really adoring the sari you are wearing. Can she have a photograph of yours? And that facilitates the communication.
well, and that's
Language
a
is no
question that
barrier.
just popped up right now as well, Chetan, is how commonly is English spoken?
Oh, universally, everyone is able to speak at least a basic level of English, especially when you are in cities, excellent English. When you go to two-tier cities, as we have our own type of like demarcation of the cities and towns and villages, surprisingly now the standard of education in India is really high at all levels. So more often than not, even in small villages, you would come across people of your day-to-day utility or day-to-day people who would want to be in interaction with the tourists specifically. They are able to speak fair level of comprehensive English. They may not be really pretty much like literary, but yes, the basic communication and articulation can very easily happen. And even if
Remember
someone
that
is not
India was part
able,
of the, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
please.
I'm just going to say, remember that India was part of the British Empire for hundreds of years, and that India, I've mentioned before, is so diverse. The people of the North don't speak the same language as the people of the South. And even though India has a national language of Hindi, the language of the middle class is genuinely English, right? It just takes us getting used to the Indian accent a little bit before you're able to communicate very easily, pretty much everywhere you go.
All right, so
Absolutely.
I've got a couple more questions. My son likes to listen and write questions on an envelope. So when he's very excited about a guest, he hands me these questions and he's listening in the other room. So his first question is actually a very interesting one. Where do the regions in India get their names from?
Sorry?
Where do the regions, the regional names, the place names, where do those come from? Do they have any special meaning, the different place names? Like Rajasthan, does that mean something?
Yeah. If you go back a little bit behind on the historical timeline, basically the cities that were found and established by Hindu rulers, more often than not, they have the names with Pur, Pur ending. So Jodhpur, Udaipur, Jaipur, and so on. Right. Then we have the lineage where we had Mughals or Mongols or Muslim rulers. So any of the city that would have been founded by any of the Muslim ruler has BAD, Bad. The pronunciation would be Bad, not bad, as its name. So Hyderabad, Ahmedabad, Sikandrabad, these like. Right, that's number one. Number two, based on the caste of a particular person. For example, Rajasthan, Raja. Hey,
Hello.
hi. Thanks for the question. So the Raja means in Hindi a king. Isthan, place to live. So place where kings live, Rajasthan. Place where PAK, Pak means chaste people live, Pakistan. The original wording. Place where Hindus live, Hindustan. That's another name given to India by the Mughals when they were ruling. Place where Uzbeks live, Uzbekistan, Stan. That's the place of living. Now, if we further percolate down the name, some of the names are also given colloquially based on their local folk tales and folklores. So sometimes you might say, how come Agra? It has no port, no bath, no name, but then that is the name. So that's how the name goes. But yes, for instance, when you go to South India, there are so many cities with their names ending in am. The sound of pronunciation would be Rameshwaram.
Assam.
You get the sound? Rameshwaram. So that means those cities, they get their names from Sanskrit, which used to be their main language. So really interesting to really figure out all these. When you go to the hill area, when you go to the desert area, when you come to any of the tribal belt, when you go to any of the desert, when you go to backwaters, for instance, the coastal areas, they have their own local ethnic groups and terminology based on which they would have their names.
And I was Hyderabad as it has the Bad ending, and so it's it was ruled by a foreign Muslim Mongol.
Muslim, yeah.
I
So
thought,
if you really,
it was further to the south, and that it would have only been Hindu rulers that would have been down in the south.
many. See, what happened? There were Hindu rulers all over the place, but with lot of invasions happening. Sometimes they were able to vanquish the contemporary Hindu rulers who were there. Sometimes there were alliances that formulated, right? So alliances formulated, and then the ruler gave them space to come and live as well. For example, if you really go through the Malabar coast, which is present day Kerala, you would come across Specifically in Kerala, we have Dutch, we have Portuguese, we have French,
Hmm.
right? So they were all given proper space for them to come and rule over or live and do the trading, for example.
Yeah.
But if you talk about the name Kerala, which is a state, Kerala, the local language, it means land of coconut. Kera, Kera, Kera is coconut. La is land. So Kerala, land of coconut. Mumbai, as in Bombay,
Hmm.
name given by the Portuguese, Bombay. Bomb is good in Portuguese, and bay is a harbor, good harbor, Bombay.
Wow. Well, that was a very good question, Luca. Thank you so much for asking. I would have not thought to ask that question, but that's fascinating. And what's cool is that gives us a little clue about what an incredible guide Chetan is. So, Reed, you always are raving about Chetan. So I would love it if you could tell us a story. Tell us a little anecdote about something that happened with you and Chetan on tour. I'm sure you've got a million of them.
Oh, yeah, let's see here. I'm gonna relate a good one. Well, here's a very, very here's a very personal one. Are you trying to give me a clue here, Chetan? Is there a
No,
story?
no, I mean,
Okay.
first you share, and then probably I'll as well.
I feel like Sarah put me on the spot a little bit, and I might be forgetting a great story. So if you think of one, you can remind me. But a couple things. First of all, my Indian coffee mug here. The story there is it's kind of hard to find coffee mugs in India. They drink tea there, right? So you don't find them. And I started this coffee mug collection, and I mentioned to Chetan at some point during the tour if he could sort of point me in the right direction for places where I'd be able to find a coffee mug. Couple days later, I get presented with this mug, and Chetan just took it on his own initiative to buy it for me and give it to me as a gift. And I just think that says a lot about Chetan, but also about Indian culture and that sort of hospitality mentality. And I'll add this: I'm very fussy about my mugs, and the odds that he would pick one that I really liked were pretty low. And I love this one. It's really perfect with the Indian elephant on it. And so that's a small one right there. The story that we already talked about. If I just wish I had a video of Chetan out there parting the Red Sea for us on our way to Pushkar to get in there. There was another time that I thought of one and now it's left me already. Chetan,
but that's okay. That's okay. We're kind of running out of time, but what I wanted you to do before we go, Reed, is actually, could you recount for us what our programming is for this week? Because Chetan's going to be joining us a bunch this week. We've got a lot of fun things up. So what's going on this week?
Right. So tomorrow, about this same time, I think 15 minutes earlier or later, Chetan is going to be on with Sarah, teaching everybody how to make authentic Indian chai tea, right? So it's one of those classic things. Chetan mentioned it. It's part of the hospitality approach there. It's instantly addictive when you start drinking it there. So we're going to learn all the ins and outs of making chai. On Wednesday, we're going to have another coffee chat with a colleague of Sarah's and mine, Chris Coleman, who's a yoga instructor and has her own yoga studio and has gone to Northern India a number of times to study yoga. So she's going to be sharing with us her experience of that. Right now, I'm scheduled on Thursday to do the PowerPoint presentation of this tour that Chetan and I have done together that we will be offering again in the next two falls. I'm going to have to add a caveat there. Thursday might not be the best day for me to do that. So stay tuned if you're interested in that for us to let you know when that's going to happen. And then we had to push a little bit we usually have our virtual tours on Thursday. Chetan is not available until his Sunday morning. So Saturday evening, sort of 8 o'clock in the evening-ish, Seattle Pacific Standard Time, Chetan will be giving us a virtual tour that begins very close to the fort behind me here and showing you his hometown of Jodhpur in Rajasthan. So that's our week, Where in the World week for India this week.
Excellent. Well, we've got lots of great things coming up for you guys. Thank you. REID is organized this week, so thank you, REID, for organizing our India week. And like we said, you can travel with us. We've got our tour dates open up on imprinttours.com. You can sign up already and travel with me and Chetan, or REID and Chetan. And I'm so looking forward to this week. This is going to be super fun. So thank you, everybody. For those who are watching, if you are a part of the Guide Collective Book Club, we're going to have that coming up in 15 minutes if you've read our book of the month. And otherwise, I'll see you back here at 10 o'clock tomorrow for our chai lesson. Thank you so much, Chetan. And is this how we say thank you? I think so. Namaste, right?
Namaste.
Thank you.
Namaste.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's absolutely delightful to again be on a virtual face-to-face chitchat.com with you. Thanks, Reed, for having me in the first place, indulge into this great Guide Collective thing. And thanks, Sarah, for just accepting me as I am. Crazy.com,
wonderful.
if I would say.
Yeah, we got
Thanks
to
so
get
much.
you into the Guide Collective too. We got to talk about that. So, all right, everybody, thanks so much. We'll see you again tomorrow at 10 o'clock.
Okay,
Just stay safe, everyone.
bye-bye. Travel with